Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today. I'm Jackie and I create sea glass mosaics, and today I'm going to talk to you about my cottage window. So today I'm coming to you from my cottage, and I'm really glad to be here in PEI and tell you about my first mosaic project. What started me on the road to creating sea glass mosaics. We were building this cottage and I had this idea that I wanted to put a window between the bedroom and the living room. And right now I'm in the living room and this is the window, and then the other side of this is our bedroom. And I wanted to put a stained glass window in it, and my father said, well, why would you use stained glass when you have so much sea glass? You could do a sea glass window. So I went about trying to figure out a way to create this, and this is what I came up with. I did one test piece before creating this piece, and then I did this one. A few of the things that I really like about this piece, I'll tell you what I like first. I really like that there's a straight horizon line. And so this to me is more from the beach. So you've got like beach, water, sky, looking out over the Northumberland Strait in PEI. And I also included a few sailboats. You see I have a few sailboats in the water. And so quite a bit of blue. I have blue along the horizon line, and I have some blue wavy waves through the water. There are also some really special pieces in this sea glass mosaic. I have a yellow right here, and then if you look over on the other side, I also have a yellow right there. And if you're a sea glass picker, you know that yellow is fairly rare. And I also have a red piece right here up in the sky, and that's just sort of a random bird type thing up in the sky. And I also have a red piece right here in the middle of a flower in the middle of the water, which is just kind of a fanciful thing. And one of the things that I really quite like about this piece is that the highlight of the day when you're here at the cottage is watching the sunset over the water. So here's my cottage window from our bedroom. So as you can see, it's just as beautiful from this side as it is from the other side. When you look at it, you can see the design is basically in reverse. To me, it's more interesting from the other side because you can see all the bumps of the sea glass, whereas on this side it's flat. But it's still quite pretty, and it's a beautiful piece in our bedroom. And you can see because the glue has dried clear, you don't see a blob of glue on the back of the pieces. It does tend to look fairly clear, and I was pleased with that result. So there's a few things I wanted to tell you about this in case you look at this and you think, oh, I like that idea, I'd like to try and make one. If you have no interest in making one, you can stop watching the video right now. You don't need to know about my mistakes. But if you are interested in making one, I'd like to tell you about my mistakes so you can avoid them. People walk into my cottage quite often and they'll look at the window and they say, oh, I love it. And I don't bother telling them what's wrong with it. But I'll tell you what's wrong with it in case you want to make one. One of the things to keep in mind if you are going to make one, what my father did was he framed in the hole in the wall. So what you would do is frame in a hole in your wall and then measure it and cut a piece of glass the size of your frame. And remember, when you're gluing the sea glass, and then you would do the mosaic on the table. But when you're gluing the sea glass on the mosaic, be sure to leave about 3/4 of an inch all the way around the edge so that there's room for you to put the piece of wood to install the mosaic window into your hole in the wall. So the 4 big mistakes I made with this one. The first one was that I used epoxy to glue on the pieces because I didn't have any way of finding out, well, how would I do this? So I was experimenting with different glues, and epoxy worked. It dried clear and it held. So I used epoxy, even though it was very fussy to work with. But over time, pretty well all of these pieces have fallen off. In fact, just as I was talking to you, I noticed I'm missing a brown piece right there. So I'm going to have to glue another brown piece on there. So over the course of the 10 years that I've had this piece hanging here, pieces have fallen off and I've had to glue them back on. And now I use silicone. and any that I've glued back on with silicone have not fallen off. So do not use epoxy, use silicone. My second mistake that I made, in my books was a mistake, was I really like the look of sea glass when it's wet on the seashore. So I put a clear coat over all of the sea glass so that it always looks shiny. And I've discovered in my subsequent mosaics since that if I leave the sea glass without a clear coat, it's much more interesting because it'll pick up the moisture on a damp day, and it'll be dry on a dry day, and it just has a lot more life and a lot more interest. And the other thing that I found was, especially in the sky, where I had these strips of aqua and white, it looked really pretty. And then when I sprayed them, there wasn't as much difference between the aqua and the white, and it wasn't nearly as interesting and didn't have as much depth and dimension. So I was kind of disappointed with that. But I'll live with it because I'm not going to redo the window. I am quite happy with it. The third mistake I made with it is I made the shoreline a little bit too wavy. And in the end, I decided I wished I had made the shoreline a little bit flatter because it would look a little bit more realistic. So that's just a personal preference thing. And the fourth thing that I noticed about this one that I would warn you about is that this piece doesn't have one main focal point. There are a lot of tiny focal points, like the sun, and there's the 3 sailboats in the water, and the inukshuk. The inukshuk to me is a bit of a focal point in this one, but they're all kind of minor focal points. There isn't like one major focal point to draw your eye in. And so, you know, I think the piece would be more effective if I had included maybe one big sailboat or maybe a lighthouse or something that really drew your eye in initially. But other than that, I am quite pleased with this piece, and it's still it's enjoyed by everybody who comes in and looks at it, and I still continue to enjoy it. So I hope that this has been helpful for you, and if you have a desire to create a window within your house between 2 rooms, I'd strongly encourage you to do it because it is a lot of fun, and it's a bit of a showpiece in your home. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them and I'll see if I can answer them for you. Thanks very much for joining me today.